And we are back to, of course, talk about another car from GT7 Spec 2. This time, certainly one of the most legendary cars out of the selection. A car which I actually saw a steady increase in chatter for over time. It used to be stuff like the LFA, the C8 Corvette, but the 190, especially over recent months, I saw more and more people talking about it, even before we knew for sure that it was coming. Of course, for good reason. It is a legend in real life, that goes without saying. If you can ever even have the opportunity to see one in person, you're lucky, let alone own one. And in the game, of course, being around as far back as, I think, at least Gran Turismo 4, if I recall correctly. And of course we had the touring car as well, the DTM Legend in that black and grey, or black and silver, depending on how it looked in certain light. And of course now that it's for the first time ever in full premium HD glory with that detailed interior, well, it's a game changer for 190E fans. For me, it was one of the cars which I was looking forward to more because it is a legend. I wasn't super excited to get my hands on the car and start driving it, but when I actually did get behind the wheel in the game again, it did feel good, because it was like a childhood friend coming back. To me, the 190E, even back then, felt a little sluggish compared to how cool it looks. And it's funny because in real life, if you compare it especially to today's performance standards, it's very slow. It's like 7 seconds to 60 with a 230 horsepower engine, but back then, in around 1991, that was much more of a big deal. And of course there were quicker cars than that at the time, but this is more of a cornering monster. And speaking of cornering, that's actually something which I really like to see about this reiteration of the car in the game now. And that is that, to me, the E30 M3 and the Sierra RS500 from Ford, they're very finicky and very twitchy, and they respond in kind of weird ways to tuning. Setups which will work just fine on other cars have really weird results on them, and yet with the Mercedes, at least for me, I found it very consistent, very easy. Even if you don't do anything to it, it corners like it's on rails, and even though it's not the quickest in a straight line, you can change that pretty easily with power upgrades. In fact, I would actually recommend, when it comes to tuning something like a 190E, to take the exact opposite approach to what I usually like to say about muscle cars. Muscle cars already have the horsepower, they already have the torque, so just work on bringing the weight down and improving the cornering, and you're set, you're ready to go. With the Mercedes, it's the total opposite. The cornering, the brakes, the weight, they're all pretty good already. So improve the power, improve the acceleration, improve the straight line performance, and then you've got yourself a weapon. Now, some people here and there I've heard complaining about how they find it a bit of an unruly car when tuned. I can't say I found that to be the case personally. I love the handling on it, and even with the price tag being far higher than it used to be, still not as expensive as the touring car obviously, 300,000 in the Haggerty legendary dealer, which could mean that it will go up in future, wouldn't surprise me if it does. That's not really that bad. 300 grand seems appropriate for a car like this. I remember when they first started to go crazy. I think I've only ever seen one of these maybe for sale, and at the time it was already like 100 grand. Now this one, if it mirrors real life, sounds about right, 300,000. Many of these homologated cars, both from the touring car days and of course the Group B era, well, they are some of the most desirable collector's cars of all time, and certainly they are some of the ultimate unicorns. You can just go down a laundry list of these iconic names. 190E, E30 M3, Sierra RS500, the special edition rarest Supra from the touring car days as well. But even in the rally world, your Delta Evo 2s, Audi Quattro, the short wheelbase Sport Quattro even more, stuff like the 205 Turbo 16, the Renault 5 Turbo. These are absolute legends. I feel like they've done an amazing job, each on their own merit, of being cars that have transcended time. And I noticed that a lot of cars which maybe younger people today don't care about as much, maybe because they didn't grow up with them, these ones, like the Group Bs, like the touring cars, they've kind of just punched straight through that. You still think they're awesome, badass cars, even by today's standards. And to me, that's a testament to just how cool they were at the time, that they still are that cool, and still are that collectible. And in the case of this one, well, the 190 is one of the ultimate unicorns, even by Mercedes standards, and they've made plenty of unicorns. The chance to see one of these in real life outside of a museum or a private collection is next to nil, and seeing one for sale, let alone owning one, even more of a rare opportunity. To me, I love the fact that it's back, having that detailed interior, being able to actually turn it into the DTM touring car with those visual upgrades, even stuff like a badge delete and you can take the aerial off, cool stuff like that. Well, of course, it goes without saying this is going to be in a future special project. Obviously, I'll be turning it into the touring car as best as we can. I mean, I already did the M3 and the Sierra. I should do the Supra in future as well at some point. So yeah, of course I'm doing a special project for the 190E, and it is great to see this old friend back. A legendary road car, an even more legendary touring car, and that's the funny thing to me again, to reference what I mentioned just now, because even though the touring car version, even in that ultimate form, still wasn't the quickest of touring cars. The Alpha 155 could run rings around it, of course the newer ones could, like the A4, the CLK, the Astra, even the Calibra. It was pretty much the slowest touring car in the game aside from the fictional ones like the Mazda. It was still one of those cars that you felt like you just kind of had to have it. It was just so fun to drive. And that still feels that way now. That to me is the testament of a truly badass car, if it stands the test of time in that way. If it sounds like a mostly positive review, if not completely positive, well, that's because it is. To me, it's not really a car that has any overt downsides. The only downside that you could say is that it's a bit sluggish by today's standards, and that's nothing that a hell of a lot of money and upgrades can't fix. So, to me, it's an awesome car. The price isn't too bad. It's certainly a fantastic collector's piece. You could easily have a bunch of these. You could potentially build like a drift version, you could have a track day version, you could have a stock version for the collector's appeal, you could build a replica of the touring car. I don't recall if you can put the dirt tyres on it or not, but building a fictional Group B version, of course you've got to do that as well. But overall, that's it for my thoughts on the 190E. Of course, I would love to hear yours down below. If you were one of those people who was really wanting it back and really looking forward to it, have you found it to satisfy that desire? I know that for many people the LFA did, so I'd love to hear if that was the case for the 190E as well. And maybe for some who perhaps were disappointed by it, why? Well, either way, let me know. And of course, we have more car reviews still to do from Spec 2, so stick around for those. And for now, thanks for watching.